Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the Common Start Bill. I am Suzanne Brock, the president of the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area. We are one of the sponsors of today's forum, along with the Cape and Islands chapter of the Common Start Coalition. We have a few announcements to make before we begin. First, the forum is closed caption, and we will be providing this program in 3 languages with simultaneous translation. Everyone must select a language: English, Spanish, or Portuguese. To select your preferred language, please click on the icon for choosing a language. If you are on a laptop computer, it looks like a globe at the bottom of your screen. If you are on an iPhone or a tablet, you will need to go to Options to choose your language.
Sejam bem-vindos todos vocês para este fórum. Nós vamos estar discutindo sobre a Common Start Bill e a tradução será em português simultaneamente. Todos vocês vão poderem escolher a sua língua de preferência.
Sejam bem-vindos a este fórum de Common Start Bill. Isso vai ser disponível em 3 idiomas, em inglês, português e em espanhol. E todas nessa reunião têm que selecionar o idioma de preferência e vai aparecer na pantalla globo e tu vas escolher qual é seu idioma de preferência para empezarmos a reunião. E agradeço a todos que estão aqui presentes.
At this time, we will be moving on, and hopefully everyone is in their proper language area. The forum will be recorded and will be available on the Cape Cod Area League of Women Voters and the Common Start Coalition's websites and Facebook pages. Everyone will be muted during the program, except for our speakers. If you have any questions for our panelists, please use the chat box, and please identify the name of the panelist that you would like to answer the question. The question and answer period will begin after all the speakers have made their presentations. Before we begin, I'd like to give a big thank you to our 2 translators. Katia da Cunha, our Portuguese translator, and Natalia Fuas, our Spanish translator. We would ask that the speakers please speak slowly and clearly so that our translators will have time to communicate with audience members. We also want to thank Richard Utt and Diana Painter for their superb technical support in carrying out this important virtual forum. For 101 years, the League of Women Voters has been a nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization whose core mission is empowering voters and defending democracy We encourage informed and active participation in government and work to influence public policy through education and advocacy. This Zoom meeting, which is co-sponsored with the Cape Cod chapter of the Common Start Coalition, is part of our ongoing effort to help citizens understand the upcoming legislative session and the issues being considered by our legislators. Our first two speakers are from the two organizations that are sponsoring this forum. Sandra Feynman Silva, coordinator of the Cape and Islands chapter of the Common Start Coalition, and Eileen Elias, a member of the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area and chair of our health committee. Sandra, a retired professor of anthropology at Bridgewater State University, is a longtime member of the Coalition for Social Justice Board and Steering Committee, and is active in social and environmental justice and women's and human rights issues. She is author of two books, one which investigates the Oklahoma Choctaw Nation's history of land loss and economic exploitation, and the second investigates diversity in Provincetown, Massachusetts. She is a Falmouth Town Meeting member and a coordinator of the Cape and Islands chapter of the Common Start Coalition. Welcome, Sandra.
Thank you very much to the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area and for collaborating with Common Start, and to you, our audience, for joining us today. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought into sharp focus the essential role early education and childcare plays for families, for our economy, and most importantly, for our children. When care is unavailable or inaccessible, children suffer, families suffer, and our economy cannot function. Even before the pandemic, families faced childcare expenses, often more than home mortgages or rent. Massachusetts today is the most expensive state for childcare. Many regions face what we call child care deserts, where seats are virtually non-existent. In short, the early education and care system is unsustainable and broken. The Common Start bill, now being considered in the State Education Committee, is sponsored by 98 state representatives and 30 state senators, including Representative Kip Diggs and Plymouth Barnstable's co-lead Senate sponsor, Susan Moran, who will both be speaking this morning. The Common Start Coalition has thousands of members in 7 chapters, 6 regional and a statewide Spanish language chapter. Dozens of businesses, NGOs, unions, providers, parents, and caregivers have signed on to the campaign. Supporters include the Cape and Islands Chamber of Commerce, Massachusetts PTAs, Cape Air, Nantucket Community School, Cape Cod Children's Place, the Coalition for Children, Woods Hole Daycare Cooperative, and many more on Cape and off. Research shows that investment in early education and care pays for itself, with long-term benefits to our economy, our families, children, and our society. Children receiving such care have better academic outcomes. They stay in school longer, earn more, have fewer engagements with law enforcement, and have fewer mental health interventions. The Common Start Bill's framework uses a combination of direct to provider funding and ongoing family financial assistance to reduce costs to families while compensating providers for the true cost of providing quality care. First is bedrock funding, based on the number of seats available in a center or family-based early education and care facility. Funds would be used to increase wages, fund professional development, and for facility materials, supplies, and improvements. Provider pay would increase as well. Second are income-sensitive subsidies to families for the actual cost of care. Parents will pay no more than 7% of family income on early education and care, a level the federal government has declared is affordable. Also included is funding for wraparound services, for after-school, summer, and vacation care, for children to age 12, and for special needs children to age 15. In conclusion, the Common Start Bill will solve the early education and care crisis through common sense, realistic solutions, which make high quality care affordable and accessible for all. Please look at our website for more information at commonstartma.org. Thank you so much for being with us here this morning.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Eileen Elias has more than 40 years of experience in addressing bigotry and stigma as a policy leader, an educator, and a volunteer. The owner of E. Elias and Company, she provides consultation to organizations on addressing the rights of individuals with disabilities. She has served as the United States Department of Health and Human Services Deputy Director of the Office on Disability and as the Massachusetts Commissioner of Mental Health, where she transitioned the Commonwealth to community-based systems of care. She is a published author, a guest lecturer at national and international conferences, chair of the Barnstable No Place for Hate, a member of several civic organizations, including the League of Women Voters of the Cape Cod area, and a foster parent. Welcome, Eileen.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to all of today's panelists, and participants. Thank you for understanding the importance of the Common Start Bill by attending or presenting. Appreciation to State Senator Susan Moran and State Representative Kip Diggs for your important support. Over 50 years ago, my experience in obtaining childcare for each of my husbands and my adult sons is not that different from the issues faced today by a parent trying to obtain and pay for quality childcare and/or early education. Many recent newspaper articles and television programs have identified and discussed the importance of having quality, cost-effective childcare. Other states have moved ahead of Massachusetts in passing necessary laws and ensuring funding. Passing the Common Start Bill is of utmost importance to help address the crisis, as well in finding employees or workers to fill all types of positions in healthcare, within the service industry, other areas. Having these key services available and affordable, training costs supported, and quality monitored will help address the economic challenges and possible mental health issues faced by parents due to unemployment and limited funds. Having the confidence and trust that one's child is well cared for helps the parent return to work. Today's panelists will discuss these issues and others to help each of you understand the importance of having the Common Start Bill become a law, and again stated, funded. When the Common Start Bill is in fact passed and funded, parents can be assured that early education, teachers, and childcare workers will remain with these important programs in support of their children. They will know this because the staff will be paid at commensurate salary levels as kindergarten through 12th grade teachers. And childcare programs can pay staff salaries greater than what can be earned from a fast food restaurant. The form was developed by members of the Cape Cod League of Women Voters and the Cape Cod Common Start Coalition to provide to you education on this bill and explain why each of your advocacy-based actions are so necessary. The forum's expert panelists and you, our audience, represent the Cape's diversity. Though we may be different based on color or language, we have an important commonality. We want our children to have the best chance for a full and productive life. Quality childcare and early education are key in having these outcomes happen. I thank you.
And I thank you, Eileen. Today, we have an impressive panel of speakers, including state legislators, educators, childcare providers, members of the business community, and parents. The complete biographies of the panelists can be found on the League's and the Common Start's websites, which will be provided in the chat box. The two legislators who have joined our panel this morning are State Senator Susan Moran and State Representative Kip Diggs. Senator Moran is the co-Senate sponsor of the Common Start legislation. She represents the Plymouth and Barnstable Senate District. She has been a leader in the legislature on issues related to economic development, such as childcare, education, and environmental protection. Welcome, Senator Moran.
Thank you, Suzanne. It's wonderful to see and be among so many leaders in the community. And I could not be more proud to be appearing before the League of Women Voters and with the incredible history of bipartisan advocacy on key issues. Thank you for that. I also appreciate appearing with my delegation colleague, Representative Diggs. I see many familiar faces. The sort of instigator on the Cape side with me, Dr. Sandy Feynman Silver, many other folks. I can't name everyone, but Amy O'Leary, just folks who have a vast experience, not only within the childcare arena and the business of childcare, the economics of childcare, but also folks who have such a heart in advocacy. And I'm very proud, and I would say that this legislation is probably the most foundational legislation that I have sponsored in the sense of our economy and in our future, in terms of this present time that we are in coming out of COVID, as you know, in terms of our economy, and as we, as President Biden says, try to build back better. This is a unique moment in time that our legislation, Common Start, which Senator Lewis is a co-sponsor of, it really can plug in and energize in all of the best ways, the way that we move forward. COVID has laid bare a lot of our socioeconomic problems, and it also provides an opportunity that we can really bring hope to our next generation in terms of their health, in terms of their success from day one. This legislation is also personal to me. Before I became a lawyer and worked very long in business, I graduated Tufts with a degree in mental health and went pretty straight into working with children. I worked inpatient in a hospital with emotionally challenged children. I thereafter, as a lawyer, represented a daycare business and got really an insider's view of the challenges, particularly for women, in not only working in childcare, but also in running the childcare business. And as Dr. Feynman Silver really eloquently described, this legislation is incredibly practical and well-researched. It really provides resources on both the inside and the outside. It elevates to the deserved importance, the fact that childcare is so foundational to our economy. It is so foundational to particularly women's rights going forward, to particularly families' well-being, and to particularly Black and Brown folks who work in the business, in the sense of really deserved appreciation and professionalism that can and should be attained. And so this is the, sort of the underpinnings of the Common Start legislation. I talk about just, more personal experiences. I think that many of us parents, particularly women, have had, that, probably daily, if not weekly, experience of how childcare can be a challenge in employment. Getting ready as with a husband who traveled, 3 kids, that, you open up lunchbox and there's a note from the teacher about, we need a milk carton for today. And what do we all do? Open the fridge, dump the milk out, put the container in the lunchbox, and try to make a mental note to, on top of when you get home from work after whatever, 6, 8, 12 hours, try to remember to buy milk so that the kids have something for their cereal in the morning. These are our, our inside the home experiences. And what this legislation is built to do is to really recognize the reality for parents, and the fact that we are at times all held back by Hobson's choices of our childcare or our child's well-being compared to our professional and our financial well-being. And it's not something that we should be just accepting. It's not something that we should just convince ourselves that we can, if we only worked harder, if we only spent more waking hours. This is time coming out of COVID, where national funding is higher than ever at this moment, that we really need to look at systemic changes. Right, we just got this weekend, and this is something that folks here feel free to contact every legislator, both in the House and the Senate. I am on the Special Legislative Early Education and Care Economic Recovery System, along with Amy and probably some more folks here. And we've received the draft of the report, which is incredibly comprehensive. But this is something that really opens a door again to passing this legislation, which right now has been put on extension, which means there's more work to be done. Part of the work is reviewing this legislative commission report. And so I want to just leave you with a request to do 2 things. One is, please feel free to email me any questions. I am your partner in this endeavor. I am looking at many, many folks who are working on this issue. My email will be in the chat because I'm headed to a second meeting. It's susan.moran@masenate.gov. And email not only me, but all of your legislators about how important this legislation is to you, to your families, to your children, and to our future. So thanks again to the League of Women Voters. I could not be more proud to have you as partners in this legislation and for all of your work going forward. You may be on mute, Suzanne.
And thank you for that. Thank you very much, Senator Moran. And hopefully you'll be getting lots of questions. At this time, I'd like to introduce Senator Diggs, Representative Diggs. State Representative Kip Diggs is a House sponsor of the Common Start legislation, and he represents the 2nd Barnstable House District. Since taking office in January of 2021, he has been appointed to 7 legislative committees, including the Joint Committee on Education. Welcome, Representative Diggs.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here with everyone. Thank you for the League of Women Voters and all the panelists that are up there. And our voters, I mean, everybody, this is so important. Our future, when I speak about pre-kindergarten, I think makes me think of what I had to go through, my childhood. I was a senior in high school and I had my daughter, Tanisha. And thank goodness I had grandparents and great grandparents that could help me out while I was finishing school. And they were able to help out until the kids were ready to start going to preschool. Well, I had a job and my ex-wife and I were able to afford early education. But not only, that was then, this is now. And now not everyone always has 2 people or that can afford to do something like this. And, my daughter is now a chemical engineer and she's doing very well for herself. But it's because of that foundation that she was able to have, that pre-education. She went to Academy of Early Learning. I've gone to Crystal Gardens and seeing how kids pre-K that are learning different languages, that by the time they get into kindergarten, they can speak 3 fluent languages. That's incredible. That will make our foundation so strong. There's nothing like being able to have a child be able to, I have a problem just being able to speak English. Forget about being able to speak 3 languages. It like some people that I know can, and I envy that. So, I'm honored to be here with Dr. Feynman Silva. She has been instrumental in this, and we started talking before I was inaugurated. I was all about Common Start, and they knew I was all about, what can I do? And being on the education committee, the economic development, all of this is this is so meaningful for our Cape Cod area. But not only that, like I said, our future, our children deserve an opportunity to be successful. And it may be whatever they want to be, they can be. But I know if we have a great foundation, they can be whatever they want to achieve. Being a state representative, there's been so many phone calls to me saying, "Hey, what can you do? How can I help?" And I've been like, "Well, what's been really your issue?" I'm kind of asking them, and they're saying, I'm having problem with childcare, affording them. I'm having to have 2 jobs to be able to have like a $15,000 to pay for my child to go to pre-K. And I'm like, and it's only one person. It's not 2 people being able to help this out. We need to figure out ways, and Common Start has figured out a way that all of us can afford to get and have our kids, so parents aren't struggling, and that we're able to help our businesses, because our businesses want these people at your jobs being able to help their families, but then being able to help their product also in the business front. And it's a burden and it's stressful on families having to worry about how they can afford to get this done. So this is a great opportunity for us to succeed in this early education. There's life isn't easy, but boy, it's to having a great foundation for your children to be able to prosper and being able to see things in a different light when they're not worried about how they can make things work. You know, I think that is so important. Stress, mental stress, you know, that just can causes so much turmoil in a family or in an individual that I don't want anyone to have to go through. What else I want to tell you? You know, I spoke on Martin Luther King ceremony a couple weeks back, and Martin Luther King was an example for all of us to, you know, he did things that was just common stuff, but he cared about everybody. And what can we do to commit so that what can we do to commit ourselves for something bigger than ourselves? And that's what we need to do. This is Common Start. I believe that Common Start would help our future become brighter for all of our children, and our foundation would be so strong that they wouldn't have, you know, there may not be problems, but they still have that foundation that they'll be able to fall back on. So I thank you. My email address is kip.diggs@mahouse.gov. Please reach out to me. Like I said, this is our future, and kids, there's nothing better than children, and being able to have them having a bright future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative Diggs. Our next speaker is our parent representative, Janae Mendez, a parent who will explain her experiences in trying to obtain childcare as a resident of Yarmouthport. Janae is the action team member for Common Start Coalition, Cape and Islands chapter, the mother of her 7-year-old daughter, Brielle, and a full-time student at Southern New Hampshire University. Welcome, Janae.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hi, everyone. My name is Janae, and as she said, I am the action team member for the Common Start Coalition. And it's been an honor being able to work for this organization. I originally was a banker for 2.5 years, and that was truly the best job that I have ever had. And, you know, over the summertime of 2021, I was really awoken by how broken our childcare system is. You know, the wake of the pandemic exposed the vulnerability of mothers and parents in the workforce. In the summer of 2021, it became impossible for me to find childcare for my 7-year-old daughter. All the available camps were no longer offering financial aid due to the pandemic, but continued to charge exorbitant prices at a weekly rate. I'm talking about $400 plus a week. After the lack of support from my employer to grant me a temporary part-time slot for my position, I was given an ultimatum of keeping my job or putting myself in a financial hole with childcare costs. It was heartbreaking leaving a career I loved and committed myself to, all because of the lack of equity in our childcare system. As a mother, it is important that I show my daughter resilience and determination. So I enrolled in college to work towards a bachelor's in human services, because one thing that can't be taken from me is my education. So thank you. Suzanne, you have to unmute.
Okay, I'll have to be fired for this one. Thank you, Janae. We will now hear from our childcare providers, and maybe they can help us understand the bottom of the problem. 2 childcare representatives, Rafaela Fonseca, a family childcare provider, and Linda Allen, the Executive Director of Crystal Garden Children's Learning Center in Hyannis. Rafaela has opened a family childcare service for 7 years. Operated, working full days with 1 great assistant and currently 10 beautiful children. She has provided emergency childcare services at her facility since the beginning. Welcome, Rafaela.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of my colleagues providers. It has been an honor to be part of this forum. I want to start by explaining how COVID affected our business. All of a sudden, we had a closure order by the governor. COVID came and hit us, scared us, and changed lives, everyone's lives, actually. A lot of business were closed. We didn't know what expected. All of this left us incredibly shocked. Parents couldn't work, and they kept their children at home. There wasn't financial help right away. So everything became complicated. We also had to isolate ourselves, change our routines, plan a new safe environment in how we worked. We also had a big challenge ahead of us, and we desperately needed a workforce. We suffered from a staff shortage. We had none. We have no qualified people to assist us. So because of this, we had to care for fewer children. If we had the same rates for every child, all families will benefit. They would have the same safer and nurturing environment, while the program will provide a stimulating learning experience. The children will be in a positive environment where learning looks fun and organic, not chaotic. If we often have training in community college courses, recruit and retain students in early childhood education, it would be great because programs that employ staff with prior teaching experience in early childhood development means that they know how to tailor the curriculum in developmentally appropriate ways. It's also beneficial to be part of educational program that encourages lead teachers, providers, and assistants to further their skills, providing them the opportunity to evolve within the ever-changing landscape of educational system. We could offer a high-quality program, especially in other languages like Portuguese and Spanish. After all, Ave's community doesn't speak enough English. It would be benefit from all of this. God bless the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Rafaela. Linda has been the Executive Director of Crystal Garden Children's Center in Hyannis for the past 21 years, with responsibilities for administrative management of the center and for assuring nurturing, healthy, and a safe environment for children, for the teachers, and for the parents. Welcome, Linda. Linda, you're muted.
Okay. Thank you so very, very much, Suzanne. It is with a great pleasure that I have this opportunity to speak before all of you. Never, ever, ever has anyone asked me about childcare, how we do it, how long I've done it, what are the ramifications of children in various environments, where do they go after they leave our facility, and again, I want to thank you so very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. If I may start, and I'm listening up to the conversations of my sisters across the board, I'd like you to know that when I first started out, I was married and I had a young child. At some particular point within my marriage, I decided that it was best that I separate myself from the man that I married. And so therefore I toted and carried my child alone. I hear you, my sisters. I feel you, my sisters. And so I did have a very good friend who remains my faithful friend and sister. I've also acquired another sister who really has helped me through the ups and downs of childcare. I've come from the field of regulatory, as a regulatory agent for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and I held that position for a long time. I was very good in what I did, and I would monitor childcare programs throughout the Commonwealth. I traveled a lot, which meant that my son was in childcare. It was very important for me then, as it is now, to choose a childcare center that's going to be effective in terms of the growth and development of not only my child, but other children that are involved. And so I took the chance and I just kept moving. But as I said, I turned around and I had two wonderful sisters who supported me during my time as a single mom. And I'd like to say that my sisters are still with me today as administrators within Best Child Care Center. So they understood my plight. They understand, and we talked a lot about licensing and how the importance of licensing is, and the children themselves. I've come with an adage always that says, give me the opportunity to teach a child the way they should go, and hopefully and prayerfully they'll never go astray. And that has been what we've done in the work with young children today. I support my sister care. And believe it or not, there are other women out there who will come and rally around us. And eventually, I also had young fathers, single fathers who came, and we also helped them grow and develop in terms of how to manage and to raise male children without any assistance. So there are many things that were spoke about here this morning. And the cost, yes, is beyond the average person who can afford it. Childcare for infant and toddlers is equivalent to a college degree. That's astounding. And yet mothers, fathers also bring their children in because they need to move on with their life. Getting quality staff is also very difficult. And when I'm talking about quality staff, one who will have the patience and or the desire to want to learn more. As a college professor, I was a college professor at Roxbury Community College for a great length of time. And I was the department chair of the early childhood department where I helped formulate a curriculum. That same curriculum I use today in my environment, promoting the educational development of our staff. So it's important that we have quality people, experienced people, educated people, and that is not the case. And I believe that the Commonwealth would need to add more into the betterment of young people, and especially those who are interested in early childhood education. It's not free. It's not difficult if there were just support. Teacher qualification is expensive. And we spent our time educating. As a result of my being a college professor, I have a jump start on what I can do with my staff as they come in. They are required to take the necessary courses and instruction from the Department of Early Education and Care in order to be a part. They are required to formulate an opinion about early childhood education and therefore work out the bugs within it as they are working within our center. My door is open to anyone who is interested in learning. I don't charge, there's not an extra fee for it. It's just a part of the program. And I do encourage because it meant a lot for me. I traveled the Commonwealth, starting childcare centers and also shutting them down. Will there be situations in my case that I would shut my center down? Absolutely. But the Commonwealth didn't know that. I would remove the people that were difficult, give them an opportunity to come back.
Thank you, Linda.
If we-
That's very
Thank you.
helpful. We so appreciate you being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. At this time, we're going to hear from our business community member.
Mhm.
Noel Pena represents the Cape Cod business community and is the Chief of Staff of the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce. At the Chamber, she leads government relations and public policy development, has general oversight of all departments, and supports the work of all Chamber pillars. Welcome, Noel.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. First, I'd like to thank all of the childcare providers on this call. I am a working mom who has relied on family daycare, preschools, camps, and now the Boys and Girls Club to be successful in my career. Before the pandemic, the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce began focusing on childcare as a legislative priority. Our members noticed the challenges their workforce faced accessing and paying for childcare on Cape Cod. The pandemic only exacerbated these challenges. We are also a member of the Massachusetts Business Coalition for Early Childhood Education. They ran business dialogues in September, where they heard that childcare is a concern among employees, costs and availability especially. There's anxiety among employees reacting to demands of work and home. Future work patterns may become more permanently hybrid, but still this creates a burden on working parents, especially women. Employers agree on the importance of building more flexible arrangements as a tool to recruit and retain talent, and they recognize the need for responsive childcare solutions. Employers seeking information and solutions strengthen the childcare system through collaboration across public and private sectors with an emphasis on quality of education in conjunction with childcare. Along with our state coalitions, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has identified childcare as a top legislative priority. In fact, just yesterday, I was on a call with the Massachusetts Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives and our regional representative for the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, where childcare was discussed. The U.S. Chamber has made the business case for high-quality childcare, which found that 60% of employers have openings that remain vacant for 12 weeks or longer, costing the economy more than $160 billion annually. And 40% of businesses can't take on any more work because they can't fill the jobs they have. Of course, we know that many employees are parents who need childcare. The U.S. Chamber found that 74% of working parents said their jobs have been affected by childcare problems, and breakdowns in childcare cost businesses over $3 billion a year. Strengthening the workforce by making this wise investment in our future employees rounds out the rest of the business case. At the Cape Cod Chamber, our February Policy Pod is a podcast we produce monthly, and it features me talking about childcare and its impact on our economy. We're also promoting the Massachusetts Business Coalition for Early Childhood Education and the Common Start Coalition to our members and directly asking our members to join and endorse the bill. Sandy and I presented to the group of local chamber executive directors on Cape Cod a few weeks ago, where she presented the Common Start bill to them and asked them to join the coalition and endorse the bill. At the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, I get to benefit from having a flexible schedule where I can work from my office or home when needed. We encourage businesses who can provide flexibility and predictable scheduling to do so for relevant roles. We also provide a dependent care flexible savings account for employees. Businesses of any size can offer employees these savings accounts to help working parents choose the childcare benefits that work for their family. I contribute $5,000 annually to this plan, which is the maximum, and it allows me to save about $2,000 in expenses since I'm saving pre-tax dollars to pay for my childcare. If anyone is interested in learning more about how to offer this benefit, please call me at the chamber. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much, Noelle. Our education and training representative is Deborah Murphy. She represents the education component of this forum. Deborah is the early childhood coordinator at Cape Cod Community College. She started working with young children in 1972 and has been a professor since 1989. She is active in the National Association for the Education of Young Children and is an editor of its online journal, Voices of Practitioners. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you and good morning. Associate degree early childhood teacher educators have been advocating on behalf of young children and families and early childhood teachers for all of the more than 30 years that I've been a professor at Cape Cod Community College. We know, perhaps more than anyone, the heart, the earnestness, and the dedication of the teachers who care for young children. We walk with them at graduation after what is often 6 or more years to obtain their associate degree. They worked sometimes more than one job. They took care of their own families. They persevered to overcome academic challenges, and they did it. Almost every early childhood program on the Cape and Islands employs one or more Cape Cod Community College students or graduates. Our students and graduates reflect the diversity of the local early childhood workforce. For example, my leadership course recently had students speaking 6 different primary languages other than English. Cape Cod Community College has been the recipient of several grant initiatives from the Department of Early Education and Care, most recently the Career Pathways Grant, which provides tuition and retention support for staff currently working in childcare settings. This grant has made it possible for several students to graduate much sooner than if they had had to rely on their own funds to pay tuition. In 2007, we were the first associate degree program in the Northeastern United States to become accredited by the National Association for the Education of Young Children, or the NAEYC. Our program is rooted in the NAEYC's statement of ethical practice, ethics to children, to families, and to our colleagues. We are a community of practice because we all care about children. We all have something to teach, and we all have something to learn. Teacher educators have steadfastly resisted efforts to reduce early childhood teacher preparation to mere training. Children and families deserve teachers that have been educated, not trained. The Institute of Medicine report, Transforming the Workforce, has made this clear. The Common Start legislation reflects the goals of national efforts that have, that have focused on this for the past few years. I served as the associate degree rep on the NAEYC's Power to Profession Task Force that met in Washington, D.C. from 2016 to 2019, and then for a year on virtually in 2020. And currently, I sit on the newly formed Commission for Professional Excellence in Early Childhood Education, where we are working to create a national policy and system of early childhood education. Our voices matter. We know what children and families and teachers need. We know what to do. Common Start will make it possible for us to do it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deborah. And finally, Amy O'Leary is an early education and care advocate through the Strategies for Children Advocacy Organization. She is the executive director of Strategies for Children, a nonprofit organization that works to ensure that all Massachusetts children can access high quality early education and child care programs. She serves on the Massachusetts Kids Count Advisory Council and the Massachusetts Department of Early Education and Care Advisory Committee. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here this morning. I appreciate all of the comments from the previous speakers and really thank them for their thoughtful remarks. As I get started, I want to think about the incredible stories of educators, program directors, family child care providers, school-age staff, CEOs, and community leaders who have shown up for children and families every day since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020. We continue to be inspired by this dedicated and resilient workforce and their commitment to problem solving, building partnerships, and providing high quality early learning experiences under these incredible circumstances. I also want to thank our elected and appointed leaders. We are grateful for the decisions you have made to support and the commitment you have shown for children, families, and educators. Now we have an opportunity to take all of the lessons we have learned, continue to stabilize the early education and care programs across the Commonwealth, and develop policy solutions for the future. As you have heard many times today, the health crisis has highlighted so many of the existing inequities in so many of our systems, and has also raised broad, concrete awareness of how critical and integral the early education and care system is to our economy. We know that if we do not seize this current opportunity, the next time the childcare sector is pushed to the brink, it may be too late. The resiliency of our Commonwealth is dependent on the improvements we make today. We also know and saw day after day that families don't live in funding streams. We saw many decisions made through the pandemic for different parts of our education system. We have created so many artificial barriers and limitations, and now we have an opportunity to do something about it. We're counting on the legislature and the Baker administration to work in partnership with us to develop innovative, comprehensive, effective ways about how to reframe and think about education for children of all ages, starting at birth. Hearing the real day-to-day life challenges has helped inform our advocacy and must drive our policy making and ultimately matching up resources and needs. We have long called for early education and care to be treated as a public good, just like our public schools and our physical infrastructure, our roads, our bridges. And we know that the childcare crisis needed to be seen, to be real to the general public. We saw babies and young children joining work Zooms, stories of parents quitting or turning down jobs due to the lack of stable childcare, and programs doing their best to try to stay open with so many unknowns. So if we take everything we've heard this morning, we know that the Common Start legislation is designed to address so many of the issues raised this morning. We heard from Sandy at the start of this forum about what the parts of the legislation are to support the affordability, accessibility, and quality of our early education and care programs. And so I've also seen questions in chat about what can we do. So first is tell your story, whether you're a parent or a child care educator or a program director or a business, working, tell your story. Connect with your state legislators, and we've heard from both Senator Moran and Rep. Diggs, and we know that the Cape delegation is so supportive of these issues, but they still need to hear from their constituents. Stay informed. There are so many moving parts. What we know right now is the Common Start legislation is still in the Education Committee, and there's another vehicle, the Early Education Economic Review Commission, that will also be making recommendations. And we're grateful that the legislature is looking at these two opportunities to think about what we can get done this legislative session. Strategies for Children has been hosting a daily call at 9:30 in the morning from 9:30 to 10, and that's another way to stay informed as we hear from experts on the ground across the state and across the federal government. You can sign up and support the Common Start Coalition and then think locally. I will put some links in chat that will help you on your way to signing up and becoming active. And we know that it's time to make systematic change. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you today and continue to work with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Amy. All of our speakers have given us so much to think about. So now it's time to take questions from the audience. Karen Mazza and Elaine Bono from the League of Women Voters will oversee the question and answer session. If you have questions and have not done so, please post them in the chat box and direct your question to the specific panelists that you would like to answer. We remind panelists that you have 2 minutes to answer a question. Karen, I'll turn it over to you. Karen? Karen, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, I could not see my picture to be able to unmute, and that's what delayed me. The first question is, what could the local community do to help pass this bill? I think that Amy gave us a very good summary, but I wonder if there are any panelists who would like to add to that.
I can add to that briefly.
Go ahead, Sandy.
This is Sandy Feynman Silva from the Common Start campaign. You could certainly join our campaign, sign on to the Common Start campaign at our website, commonstartma.org. You can also learn quite a bit about the bill and about our campaign on the website. You can share information with your friends, family, colleagues, members of your networks to tell them about this piece of legislation and to tell them about the crisis in early education and care and why it's so important to you. Outreach and education is what we're doing currently. If you join the campaign, then you will be informed about when we may be wanting to ask you to make phone calls to legislators, to the governor, and so forth. You can also tell your own story, doing a short selfie video of 2 to 3 minutes. I can help you do that. And Janae Mendez, our action team member, can also help. So we are collecting stories from stakeholders about the early education and care crisis, and we'd love to have your voice included. Thank you.
A related question, what are the chances of the Common Start legislation to get passed?
I can address that as well if you'd like. We have very strong legislative support in both the House of Representatives and the State Senate, with about 3/4 support in both chambers. There is very strong community support among all levels of stakeholders. And it's really up to you, our residents, to communicate that to your legislators, as Representative Digg suggested, so that they know the strength of community support. We are guardedly confident that this bill will move forward. Thank you.
Here's a,
Karen?
yes,
It's Eileen Elias. If I may, I believe Representative Diggs is still with us, and having his input along with Sandy's would be very helpful.
Yes, I agree with what Sandy just said. Dr. Sandy someone just said. Honestly, just email us, get in touch with us. I mean, I'm doing everything I can to push Common Start, and so is Senator Sue, and you know, I'm on the education committee, and I can tell you that it is going into another little committee, so that they're really going to talk about early pre-K. So this is very, very important to the education committees, and I hope it will go out favorably. I mean, there's a lot of buzz to it, and you know, I'm so honored to be on this committee because this is so important. And you know, like I said, when I was elected, before I was elected, I was, but I knew I got elected, excuse me. I knew that I was on this, and I wanted to really push hard for this. So I really feel that it will happen. It just takes a little bit of time, unfortunately. I mean, we want it done yesterday, but we are working hard to see it all the way through.
The only other thing I would add is there was a federal proposal, the Build Back Better legislation, which would have provided $400 billion for childcare and early and pre-K, which is stalled right now in the US Senate. And so our Massachusetts delegation is critical, but our federal delegation is just as important. So I put a link, wheredoivote.ma.com, where you can see all of your elected officials. And again, our delegation from Massachusetts has been fighting for this, but they need to hear from us that these are priorities for the state. So connecting with our 2 US senators, Senator Warren and Senator Markey, after you connect with your state legislators would be welcome. And I'll put my contact information in the chat as well if you want to follow up about that.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Sure.
At the chamber, we found that any stories that you can provide our legislators that they can use when they're speaking on the bill, it always helps. So even though they may be on board, your testimonials do always go a long way.
The question here, are you aware of any opposition in the legislature to this bill?
I haven't heard any. You know, we haven't heard. I haven't heard, at least in the education committee. I have not heard any of that. We've just been hearing just bills, to be honest with you. So, but there hasn't been. I have not heard opposition.
Someone asked if we are aware of how many child care facilities there are on the Cape. I would ask a related question. Do we have any idea how many children are on waiting lists to be served?
Can I answer that question?
So part of the challenge right now is there are so many programs that are closing. So getting that accurate data is critical. I put in the chat there, we have fast facts for every community, and you can check the Department of, I can put the other link for the Early Education and Care website. And the wait list is, we have to remember the wait list is only for subsidies. We don't have a general wait list for all children waiting for care. So Linda, why don't I turn it over to you?
Thank you so much. Right now, and long before the pandemic, I did, my staff and I did work on opening up a new infant classroom, which will hold about 22 infants, and moving towards a toddler program. 18 toddlers. So we spent a lot of time opening, and you're correct, opening and closing because of the various COVID that's occurring. And even now, we have that new strain that's entering into the child care program, which creates a serious problem again. So what am I saying? We do have a long waiting list. However, from my standpoint, I don't want to say that I would jump the list, but if a mom or dad came with a serious need, I would make it possible for that person to come into childcare. So that's what I just want to contribute here. I do everything I possibly can in order to ensure that everyone stays safe. And those who need childcare, at least we put them on the list and we star them, because the need is really very great.
We have an additional 2 questions here. Did you want to say something, Eileen?
Karen, thank you. I would like to go back to the question earlier about opposition to the bill. And I'm going to ask Representative Diggs and Sandy, if you would, how much of the budget challenges could become, to ensure the bill is funded, could become an issue of opposition?
8 minutes.
Representative Diggs, do you have any of that information, please?
I don't have that information at this time. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's understood. Sandy, do you?
I don't really have information about the fund. This bill is a roadmap. It's a template, and we are asking the legislature to pass it as a template.
I would add that that's usually the only opposition, is how will we fund it? People are very supportive of these issues, but really calling this as a public good, because right now so much of the burden is on families. So yes, I think that shift is really important to highlight.
Thank you, Amy. I'm sorry, Karen, if you would go back to your question earlier, thank you.
Well, there's a related funding question. Is there a proposed funding mechanism for this bill?
There's not a mechanism called out, but the Economic Review Commission that is also looking at the funding, which was created by the legislature, we're hoping that those two commission, the commission and the Education Committee, are working together to have a big understanding and plan about what it would take to fund the legislation fully. And as with any big plan, there's a phase in supporting most vulnerable children and families first.
This person is asking, under the legislation, is it true that childcare would be free for families earning less than 50% AMI, but earning $1 more than that would change it to 7% of income?
And I can respond to that. Families earning less than 50% of state median income would pay nothing for early education and care. Those earning more would pay on a sliding scale based upon income, up to 7% of total family income. So, and the proposal avoids what we call the cliff effect, where funding recipients would immediately be dropped from the subsidies in order to avoid that problem that suddenly a family would receive nothing. So that it is a gradual payments schedule up to 7% of total family income.
That is all the questions that we have at this time in the chat.
Well, that's probably good because we're at the point where our time period for question and answers has ended. If any of you have additional questions that you would like answered, please address them to any of those members of our panel that you think would be the right recipient of the question. Their email addresses are listed in the chat, so you can send them off on your own and hopefully get response. The League and the Common Start Coalition encourage all forum participants to learn about and advocate for the Common Start bill. It's going to take all of us to get this to happen. Any other questions that you have regarding the forum or questions, you can send to Eileen Elias or Sandra Feynman Silva. And again, their email addresses will be posted in the chat box. At this time, I would like to thank all of the panelists who have joined us this morning. State Senator Susan Moran, State Representative Kip Diggs, John A. Mendez, Rafaela Fonseca, Linda Allen, Noel Pena, Deborah Murphy, and Amy O'Leary. And I would also like to thank our chairperson, Sandy Feynman Silva, and Eileen Elias. As well as many thanks go out to those who worked behind the scenes to make this program possible. Those would be our translators, Katya Dacuna and Natalia Fuas, Richard and Diane Painter, our technical experts, League of Women Voters member Karen Mazza, and the members of the League's Healthcare and Legislative Committees, Renata Sands, Eileen Elias, Carol Young Kleinfeld, Honey Privioto, and Elaine Bono. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to join us in our effort to understand the Common Start legislation and to help get it passed. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. It was great. An honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today.
Absolutely.
Everyone, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. Thank you.